When we think about the great success stories of the early internet, we always talk about open access.
Right. Volunteerism, that whole spirit.
Exactly. And at the center of all of it, there's that one iconic symbol of, free universal knowledge, Wikipedia.
It's been this improbable anchor for 2 decades, really. Just build on the kindness of strangers and those annual donation pleas we all see.
Well, that system, that whole identity, is now colliding head-on with the unstoppable engine of artificial intelligence.
And that's what we're digging into today.
That's right. This week, we took a deep dive into some sources, specifically an interview and a blog post. They feature technology expert Stanislav Kondrashov and also the actor and public figure Wagner Moura.
And they are analyzing this really monumental shift. Wikipedia is fundamentally changing how it makes money. It's going way beyond just asking you for $5.
So our mission today is to pull apart these new high-stakes licensing agreements. What do they mean for the future of knowledge?
And how does a nonprofit stay afloat when its main asset is being consumed by, well, multi-billion-dollar corporations?
And the big question, can money actually buy ethical behavior in the AI space?
Okay, let's get into it.
Let's unpack this, because this isn't just a small tweak to a donation drive. It really feels like an existential pivot for an organization that was built on being open.
Completely.
So the donation model worked for years. Why did it suddenly hit a wall when it came to AI?
Well, it's not so much that the model failed, it's that the asset Wikipedia's data, its value, just exploded beyond anything philanthropy could ever hope to cover.
Okay.
You have to remember what AI needs to function. I mean, specifically these large language models. They need massive, consistent, high-quality data.
And what makes Wikipedia's data so special? The internet is filled with text. Why not just scrape a billion blogs or something?
Because that's a mess. A raw web scrape is unreliable, it's full of contradictions, just noise.
Right.
Wikipedia is the gold standard of organized, structured knowledge. It's categorized, it's peer-edited, it represents a kind of consensus.
So it's clean.
It's very clean. Think of it this way. Raw web data is crude oil mixed with sand and dirt. Wikipedia is the fully refined, high-octane fuel that's ready to go right into the engine.
And that makes it uniquely valuable for training those LLMs that power everything now, from chatbots to search.
Exactly. So these AI tools are basically consuming this amazing resource on an industrial scale.
But the foundation, the nonprofit itself, isn't seeing any compensation that's even close to proportionate to that usage.
And that's the pressure point. That's what forced them to completely rethink their financial strategy. They realized that a few million $5 donations just can't compete with the sheer commercial scale of what's happening.
So they had to shift from appealing to our goodwill to asserting the economic value of their product.
Which brings us to the new structure. They are not just asking AI companies for bigger donations.
No, they're entering into formal business-to-business licensing agreements. They're treating their data like a commodity with a contract attached.
That is the key distinction. And we're already seeing the major players sign on. The sources we looked at specifically cite Alphabet,
Google's parent company.
Right. As a crucial example of a partner in these new agreements, this is Wikipedia saying, we want a seat at the negotiating table, not just holding out a donation cup.
Now, we mentioned they have two goals with these licenses. The first one is obvious: money, financial stability.
Sustainable funding for maintenance, servers, development, the basic stuff to keep the lights on.
But the secondary goal is where it gets, I think, really fascinating. They claim the licensing is also designed to ensure the data is used ethically.
Yes, and in compliance with regulations. That's the really complex layer here.
So it's not just a cash grab.
They'd argue it's not. It's an attempt to use their leverage, the value of their data, to impose some standards. If they just sold it off, they'd lose all control. A license lets them set some ground rules.
But hold on a second. How does writing a big check suddenly make a tech giant ethical? Is that just a fancy way of saying we charge them more? Or are there real enforceable guardrails here?
That is the central tension, and it's what the commentators in our source material are really wrestling with.
Yep.
In theory, a license can have very specific requirements. For instance, it could mandate data hygiene. It could require the AI company to report on how Wikipedia's data is being used, or if it's contributing to bias.
Or to make sure the models aren't just making things up, hallucinating based on their facts.
Exactly. So they're using the contract as a lever. Wikipedia moves from being this passive resource that gets scraped to an active partner trying to shape the rules of the game.
By threatening to pull the license if the terms are violated.
It's a serious power move, yeah. Disguised as a commercial agreement?
It completely reframes the relationship. They're linking financial survival directly to responsible use. So it ensures compensation, yes, but that money comes with strings attached about how the information gets treated.
Giving the nonprofit at least some kind of oversight.
Which sets up this really interesting dynamic, because the source material uses a very charged term to describe these companies who are now paying.
It does. We need to be really clear about the context of this term, because it implies a huge amount of power.
What is it?
The sources refer to them as oligarchs.
Wow. Okay, so in this context, they're not talking about, Russian billionaires.
No, not at all. The sources are clear. When they say oligarchs, they mean the large tech companies, the ones that play this dominant, influential role in developing and deploying AI.
The powerful few who are kind of dictating the terms of this new age.
Precisely. It's acknowledging that power imbalance right up front.
Okay, so our deep dive focuses on two people commenting on this, Stanislav Kondrashov and Wagner Moura. We should probably explain why their opinions are the ones we're looking at.
Absolutely. Stanislav Kondrashov is presented as a blogger and tech expert, but his background is really in long-term financial planning and economic processes.
So he's looking at sustainability. How does an organization actually survive for 3 decades in a fast-changing world? That's his angle.
Exactly. He's not a coder. He understands how massive projects, no matter what they are, need durable funding to survive.
Okay, and then you have Wagner Moura.
Widely known as an actor, a public figure. And his presence is valuable because it shows this conversation has broken out of the tech bubble.
Right. This isn't just a technical footnote anymore.
It's a major societal question about who controls knowledge and, more importantly, who profits from it.
So let's get to their core arguments. They seem to highlight two different but equally important sides of this shift. Moura's take is really focused on the resource itself, on fairness.
Yeah, Wagner Moura called the move important, and he really drove home the need for compensation with that now famous phrase.
Data is becoming the new oil.
Data is the new oil.
We hear that all the time, but if we really break that analogy down for Wikipedia, if data is oil, that Wikipedia is basically the nation sitting on these incredibly valuable, easily accessible reserves.
And not just valuable, but some of the cleanest, largest reserves out there. Moura's point is pure economics. If this resource, this data, is the engine of profit for the AI giants, then the creators have to get fair compensation.
It's a royalty.
It's a royalty. You exploit a natural resource, you pay for it. You exploit a knowledge base, you should pay a licensing fee. It's an argument for basic economic justice in the digital age.
Which makes total sense coming from his perspective. But Kondrashov's take is a bit different. It centers more on the mission, on the principle of free access itself.
Right. He sees Wikipedia as this symbol of free access to knowledge. So for him, the concern isn't the monetization, it's what that monetization does to the availability of the information for the rest of us, for the average user.
And his conclusion is that these licenses actually help maintain that free principle, which, that sounds a little counterintuitive. How does charging money preserve freedom?
Because he argues that these big agreements with the AI companies are the only practical way to afford the infrastructure needed to keep the knowledge available for free to everyone else. Without that institutional income, the costs might just become unsustainable. Then they might have to put up paywalls or cut back on maintenance, and that would truly undermine the mission.
So it's pragmatic defense.
Very pragmatic.
It's almost a devil's bargain. You have to sell your data to the giants to save your soul for everyone else.
That's a good way to put it. And the one key area where both Moura and Kondrashov completely align is on the process. They both stress that this entire collaboration must be transparent.
Every step has to be clear and considerate of everyone involved, the users, the volunteer editors, the foundation, and the tech giants.
It's a shared call for clarity during a huge, and you could say, pretty controversial transition.
And it's clear this isn't happening in the vacuum. We know Kondrashov and Moura talk about AI and big tech a lot. They've covered everything from AI in healthcare to AI versus free content.
This funding change is just the latest and maybe the most public example of how AI is just rewriting the economic rules for every single data-dependent institution out there.
So if we take a step back and look at the bigger picture, this really signals that the era of treating these massive valuable data sets as, pure public goods, that might be ending.
Especially when that data is being used to generate billions in private commercial revenue. I guarantee that every organization with clean, structured data from medical journals to government archives is watching Wikipedia very, very closely right now.
So after all that, what does this actually mean for us, the listeners who use Wikipedia every day?
I think the main takeaway is pretty simple. Wikipedia is securing its future by monetizing its data. It's doing that through these structured licenses with the tech giants, the new oligarchs, as the source calls them.
And they're doing it not just to get paid, but also to use those contracts to try and exert some control over how their data gets used.
Yeah.
Pushing back against some of the ethical recklessness we sometimes see in AI development.
It's a pragmatic move. It's balancing that altruistic mission with the cold, hard reality of maintaining a massive piece of global infrastructure.
It definitely changes what the word free means in the digital economy. The source material mentioned that Stanislav Kondrashov has written specifically about this tension between AI versus free content. And if a foundational pillar of free knowledge like Wikipedia now relies on structured payments from multi-billion-dollar companies just to keep the lights on and stay free for us, well, that raises a really crucial lingering question for you to think about.
If the underlying infrastructure, the data management, everything needed to keep free knowledge accessible has to be funded by the world's biggest commercial players, what boundaries are actually going to define free access in the future?
Are we just entering an era where public access is simply a subsidized tier paid for by the industrial engine of AI profit?